What's going on, hustlers? Back at you guys with another video. The channel's growing mightily fast, so I'm super grateful for that. Hoping to get to 600 subscribers by the end of the month. I want to give a big congratulations to our clients Eric and Manpreet. They have both won their first government contracts today. Actually, they both won their first today. And yeah, they both did it in less than 45 days. So super proud of them. Without further ado, let's get into today's video, which is about how to conduct market research. This is just how I do it. This is, what helped me get to 3 million in sales. This is, the framework that I've established at Two Lines Aerospace, which is got us on track to do 20 million this year. We did 15 million last year. This is essentially what took us from 0 to 7 figures in the span of 3 years. So there's different thought processes, different ideologies. I'm just being transparent, giving you guys what works for us. So as you can see here, we're on the DIBS page, but this is not really where we're going to start. So your market research is going to come, it's going to start when you come to Google. So the first thing I like to do is I like to just search the website every spec. And there's a whole bunch of different websites that list different FSC codes. I like to use EverySpec just because that's the one that I'm familiar with. Now, I do want to clarify that there's federal supply codes, right, which are product based, and then there's PSC codes, which are product service codes. So every spec has FSC codes, which are like mainly numerical. I believe like the majority of these are numerical, and then PSC codes. That's going to be your stuff where you're going to get information about R&D, research and development. You're also going to get some information about construction, a bunch of the good server side stuff. But we work with DLA. And DLA does provide or does purchase services as well, actually. But for the purpose of today's video and for the purpose of the kind of sales that I do and that I teach, we're going to stick with EverySpec. So EverySpec FSC code lookup, that's what you put into Google search. And then that's going to take you to a website that looks exactly like this. So as you can see here, the FSC codes start at 1005 and they go all the way down to, so yeah, oh, actually they do have the letters. Nice. And they go all the way down to 99999. So a couple thousand of these, right? And then just a refresher. So your NAICS codes are the most broad classification of products and services. That's the most broad way the government classifies things. And then you got your FSC codes, which is like a funnel, and your FSC codes are more specific. And then you've got your NSN. So the first 4 digits of every NSN, or I don't want to say every, but the first 4 digits of the NSNs you're going to see in DIBS are going to be comprised of an FSC code, which are these 4-digit identifiers, and these essentially group, products or services together in the government's eyes. So right now, what we're doing is we're looking at FSC codes, a list of all the different services that DLA purchases. So now that we're here, one of the things that I like to do is I like to take my clients through this entire list and we will look through it. We'll start from top to bottom and they'll pull it up on their screen. I'll have it on my screen. We'll scroll through it together and then I'll read stuff off that I think is interesting or that I think coincides with their wheelhouse or their commercial experience, if any, if applicable. Or they'll tell me, they fill out like an onboarding questionnaire and then they tell me, okay, this is what I'm hoping to sell. And then we'll do a little market research on, that kind of product market and then see, how feasible it is. So one of the biggest things that I tell people is you want to have a niche. You don't want to sell more than, 3 to 5. You don't want to dabble in more than 3 to 5 FSC codes in the beginning. And the reason for that is when DLA is doing business with people or with firms, they don't want to deal with firms who are like, oh, I'm a jack of all trades, I can do everything, because then that just means you're a master of none. They want to deal with companies that specialize in the material that they're providing, so that way they know the integrity and the quality of either the good or the service is going to be held to the highest standard, because that is what that company specializes in. As I say often, I want to be a couple feet wide and only a mile deep. That's applicable with the stuff that I sell to the government. I only sell airframe structural components and bearings, so I only sell 2 items. Or in my business and consulting and coaching, I only focus on DLA. There's a whole bunch of government contracting out there. It's a very, very big pie. I've never done anything on the state or local level. I only know federal contracting. And then, even in the kind of content that I create, I only talk about government contracting, personal development, and endurance running. Those are the only things that I focus on. You're never going to see me talk about, hey, this is what my car looks like. It's a stage 2 downpiped, yada, yada, yada. You're never going to see that. So you want to niche down. So I always like to tell companies, hey, let's think of something outside the box. Let's work on something that, I've never seen a company sell. And one of the things that I wanted to touch on for this video is we had an intern that did this, but then she left before anything was able to come of it, right? So I always like to touch on stuff that's outside the box that I've never seen anybody sell. So right here we've got 3770 saddlery, harness, whips, and related animal furnishings. So this refers to the cages that they carry the service dogs in and the harnesses that they use to carry the service dogs, right? So we want to pick something that's super, super outside of the box, or something either that you have an inside track in, you can get good pricing on, or that you're familiar with, or something that nobody's sold. That way the competition is low. So saddlery, harness, whips, and related animal furnishings. Boom, we've got our FSC code. Now we're going to come to FPDS. So FPDS stands for Federal Procurement Data System. So FPDS has been around since 1983, I believe. Now, a lot of people like to use usaspending.gov, but usaspending.gov doesn't give you the whole picture. This is free game. FPDS, this is the real duet. So the Federal Procurement Data System is actually where usaspending.gov gets their information from. Now, the reason why a lot of people don't use this is because it's not user intuitive, it's not user friendly. User interface isn't intuitive. And yeah, it's just not super fun to use. And the only reason that this even exists is because there was an act. I forget exactly the full name of it, but it had to do with the Transparency Act, something Transparency Act. And all of the spending that was conducted by the US government had to be publicly listed, had to be public information. So that was when this website came out. So this literally shows every single transaction that the government has conducted. However, it has a 90-day lag. So just keep that in mind when you're using this to search. So now that we're in FPDS, you guys get a little bit of rundown on that. What we're going to do is we're going to just throw in the FSC code, right? 3770. Now, that doesn't really yield us anything kind of tangible, just because I typed that in, but we got a whole bunch of stuff here. So we've got department full name, then we've got contracting agency full name, we've got Department of Navy, Department of Army, entity zip codes, we got PSC code, a whole bunch of stuff. So now let's narrow it down. So then we're going to go here to advanced search, and then we're going to do add, select one. So you could search by any metric. You can put in a company's cage code to see how much business they're doing with the government. You can do an entity zip code to see how much money the government is spending with people in your area. You can do contract type, IDIQ, contract vehicle. You could do funding office. You could do your NAICS codes, or you could do your PSC codes. And there's a whole bunch of other stuff on there that I didn't touch on, but I'll do a video on how to use FPDS sometime in the near future. So we got PSC code. So PSC is product service code. FSC is federal supply code, or federal supply class code. So I don't want to say that they're interchangeable, because they kind of are, but they're also not at the same time. But for this instance of searching, yes, they are the same thing. So we got PSC code, and then you want to do like. So and then you're going to put in the FSC code that we just looked at, so 3770, and then you're going to do search, and then it's still not super clean. So let's just get rid of that right there, and then we're going to do go, product service code. All right, boom. So now we have a whole bunch of information on specifically this PSC code. So if you notice, saddlery, harness, whips, and furnishing, boom. So we can see the Fish and Wildlife and Parks Agency purchases this, Department of the Army purchases this, Department of Energy, yada, 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 Defense Logistics Agency, boom. This is what we want to look at. So after we've done that, we've narrowed it down to the search criteria. Then we want to see, okay, department full name. So you always, when you're doing business with DLA, you want Department of Defense to be in the top 3 when you're looking at this, because that just means that, hey, there's at least some traction, or there's some growth opportunity in this product market. There's opportunity for you to win contracts. So we got Department of Defense here, boom. And then we come and then we look and we see Defense Logistics Agency is the number one contracting agency within those departments. So awesome. So then we'll come here, and then now the only things that we're looking at are contracts that DLA has issued for this FSC code. So we see that there's been 428 contracts issued specifically for this FSC code, right? So now we know this is solely DLA stuff. And then we'll come down here, and there's a whole bunch of different criteria that you can search for. You can refine this even more. So what I like to do is I like to do date signed and leave it as descending. So this essentially allows us to see what are the most recent transactions that DLA has conducted for this PSC or FSC code, essentially for this product market in layman's terms. Keep in mind, FPDS has a 90-day lag. It takes 90 days for the information to be uploaded into the system. And that's for a multitude of reasons. Just one, there's a lag. It's bureaucratic. There's a lot of processes that it has to go through once a contract gets issued. Or actually, well, it could be a micro purchase that there's no contract vehicle or contract that gets published, but that's a different can of worms. But one of the main things is when a contract is issued to you as a company, you have 10 days to accept it. You are not legally binded to that contract either until you begin the work or you accept it. You have 10 calendar days to cancel it. So that is also one of the reasons that contributes to why you don't see this stuff immediately. Today is March 11th. So if you win something today, you're not going to see it until June 11th. That's just the way the cookie crumbles. But without further ado, let's get into it. So we see here the most recent transaction in FPDS, not most recent transaction that DLA has done, but just what we see here in FPDS was November 30th, 2023. So that's recent, pretty recent, all things considered. And then we see that was for pretty much $4,031. And then we've got another one, October 31st for $704, $447 on October 30th. And then we see a negative one. So when it's negative, that means it was canceled. And then we've got one for $1,100, $957, $1,200, $1,300. We got a nice one here, Garrett Container Systems for $22K. We've got one for $88, $450. So we got another one from Garrett Container Systems, which I believe is a big manufacturer. And then we got one for $26K. So DLA's buying this stuff. Oh wow, Garrett Container Systems, they probably did like $250,000 last year. Oh no, this is 2022. So DLA does buy this stuff, and the product market ranges from, as we can see, a couple $100 to tens of thousands of dollars. I just picked this one just because I know nobody really does this. This is not a niche that I've ever heard of. Out of almost 100 companies that we've worked with, never heard anybody do this. And then I just picked it because I know that the product market's going to be, it's feasible. If you're a startup and you only got a couple grand to play with, this is not something that's going to break the bank. So once we've established that there is growth potential, we do know that there's a couple opportunities out there on the market. Now we want to come to DIBS, which is the RFQ tab. We'll come to the RFQ tab. And then, as I'm sure you guys know, there's a whole bunch of different metrics that you can use to search on DIBS. And by the way, I get a lot of questions about this. So this is nomenclature that if you put in like wiring harness or something like that, this box right here is going to show you all of the solicitations that contain that nomenclature, those words. And then we'll come here to the drop-down menu, federal supply class. So now we've got 3770. We know that's the FSC code that we want. We also know that DLA spends a couple $1,000s on this. So, okay, normally there's a lot more than this, but this is a good example. I'm happy that we're looking at this one. So we looked at that. We saw DLA was buying it, and then we know that they're looking for a dog leash. So there's only one solicitation open for this. So not super, super great in terms of opportunity. Can you build a business on this? No. All right, so we're back here. So we noticed that this one is not, DLA is buying it, but it doesn't look super, it's not a super fleshed out product market, right? Let's go back to the drawing board. So we're back to everyspec.com. 3110 bearings, anti-friction, unmounted. This is a good niche just because I know that they do DLA buys a lot of these. All right, cool. So we saw last time there was 4,000 or 428 solicitate or contracts that were issued within DLA. Now we know here that there's 116,246 solicitations or contracts that DLA has published for these bearings. So now let's go look at date time. Let's go see when was the last time they bought some bearings. All right, cool. So exactly 3 months ago, $8,000 for Kitco. A lot of these are zeros, which could be that they're just IDIQs, and no orders have been made against them. We've got one that was canceled. We've got one for $84K, $1,000. Looks like these are a lot of IDIQs. 1,400, a lot of zeros. 66K, RBC Transport Dynamics Corp. I do a lot of business with them. 33 grand, Jamaica Bearings, 144 grand. I do a lot of business with them. Mechatronics, do a lot of business with them. And if you look, all this stuff is like within the past 30 days. So we got 19K, 15K. Oh yeah, and if you look, it says indefinite delivery vehicle type IDC. So whenever you see that and then zero, that means that the IDC was issued, indefinite delivery contract. So it was issued, but DLA just hasn't placed any orders against it at the point in time when this was uploaded. We got some stuff for 9K, 34K. So boom. So we know that DLA is buying this stuff. Now let's go back to the drawing board and let's see kind of what's out there. So 3110. Boom. So there's 2,118 bearing solicitations. And if you notice, there's actually 3 bearing FSC codes. This is just for the one. So if I'm not mistaken, I think there's anywhere from like 5 to 8,000 bearings contract opportunities open at one time. So we know that you can build a business with bearings just because there's so many contract opportunities out there. And then we also know the contract size. You can get some stuff in the tens of thousands of dollars. If you come back here and we look at action obligation, we can actually look at what's the biggest purchase order ever made by DLA. So the biggest one for bearings is 26 million, but that was in 1993. So let's look at something a little more recent. If we come in 2022, which is a little over or exactly 2 years ago. Wow, March 10th, exactly 2 years ago, $8 million. So this gives me some perspective and lets me know that, hey, within the past 2 years, DLA is issuing contracts upwards of $5 million, on this material. So it's definitely, worth your time to kind of build a business with this product market. And then you got SKF USA Inc. I sell so much of their stuff. April 27th, 2023. So about a year ago, last year, $2.8 million. So we do know that DLA is spending that kind of money on this stuff. And if DLA is spending that kind of money, that means that there's taxpayer dollars being allocated towards it, which is money that can be going into your pocket. So that is my short little spiel on how to do market research. This was not too long, not too in-depth, but this is a pretty good tool. This is always the drawing board that I use. That's the process that I use when I'm looking for or when I was looking for a product market to work in. Now I've kind of got my niche, but that's what I take all the new companies that I work with through. So thank you for tuning in. I hope you found the video informative. Like, comment, share, subscribe. And yeah, let's get to 600 subscribers by the end of the month. Let's get it. I'll see you hustlers.